Hey y'all, you are rocking with the Locked and Loaded RN. If you're new to my channel, bienvenidos. If you're one of my awesome subscribers, welcome back. Y'all, I'm out here working. I have 8 patients today, but I have a lot of gaps in between them, and they're all close to each other, about 4 minutes apart. So when one cancels, it leaves me with like a 30-minute break in between. So I'm here waiting till about 11:30 to see the next person. And then, we're going to keep it moving. So I've been thinking about my videos, and I know that when I posted the other one about the Afro Latinos in February for Black History Month, I mentioned that I was going to touch on a lot of different topics: discrimination, stereotypes, prejudice. And I did not forget. I just wanted to make sure I had the time to do it due diligence, because it is something, like I said, I'm passionate about. I'm very passionate. So I wanted to take the time to make sure we do that. I guess the first part where I will start, because it's such a broad topic, it's a big issue, it's a systemic issue. And like I said, it goes into many different categories. It goes into, in the Hispanic culture, the Afro-Latinos versus the Latinos that look European. We got the Caribbean Black versus American Black. We have Caribbean Black versus African Black. We have African American from the North, African American from the South. We have light-skinned African Americans versus dark-skinned African Americans. We have so many issues, so many issues. And so I guess it only makes sense to start from the root of the problem, right? Because you can look at a tree and see the branches, see the fruit that it produces. But the key to how that tree got started is the seed that was planted to make that tree grow to be whatever it is. So I think where I want to start, and I'm going to do a couple videos on this. Again, this one is for today, in between my patients. Y'all know I can run my mouth. So the best place to start, I would say, and if you never heard this, I need you to go look this up and read this. There's something called The Making of a Slave by Willie Lynch. It's the Willie Lynch letter. And I know you're wondering, why am I talking about this? When you read that letter, you will understand why I brought this up. It's called The Making of a Slave by Willie Lynch. And so this letter was written in 1712 by a gentleman named Willie Lynch. And he's writing a letter to all the other slave owners to let them know what they need to do to control their slaves and get a hold of their slaves, not just for now, but for years and generations to come. This letter was written in 1712, like I said, and he wrote in the letter, as I'm writing to you, I'm writing here in the West Indies, and I'm telling you some things that I've experienced and I've put into practice with my slaves here. That's a key point, because a lot of times you hear Caribbeans say that they don't care about racism and slavery because it's not their problem. That's an African American thing. That's not true, because Mr. Willie Lynch says right there in his letter, he's in the West Indies. And if we're going to be honest, I think some of the most brutal treatment took place in the West Indies. If you go back and look at your history, that's why history is really important. Sometimes people say just focus on the future, focus on the present, but you have to know your history. In the West Indies, that's where they implemented the what's it called, bucking, where the white men used to rape the black African American men in front of their families to put them into submission. So we can't say that it's an African American problem, because this is something that has affected the Caribbeans, Africans, African Americans, Hispanics. Everyone has been affected by it. In any case, I'm back to the point. So he says in the letter that if you implement what he does, you will have your slaves under submission for the next 300 years or more, right? Mind you, this letter was written in, look, I have notes on a napkin because I didn't want to go on a tangent. And he said that you want to make sure you implement fear, distrust, and envy. Again, I want you to look at, remember those three things, because when we start talking about the problems or the beef that is amongst these groups, it often has to do with these three things. When you really get down to it: fear, distrust, and envy. Okay. He goes on to say that you want to make sure you pin them against each other. Do it by age, by color, intelligence, by size, like their physical structure, and by the size of your plantation, right? We see that. We see that. He was saying to basically pin the older men against the younger men, so that the older men feel like they have something to prove. Like, I'm still a man, I still have strength. And the younger men will try to outdo them, like, man, get your old self out of here. We have that. Look at even in nursing, how they say nursing eats their young. When the new nurse shows up and the old nurses give them a hard time because they feel like they're coming to take their place. Okay, talk about color. That's where now you start coming in with the dark skin versus light skin. And again, in 2025, that's very much still prevalent. You hear things that are very subtle. Like in the Hispanic culture, you'll hear them say things like they're talking about their grandchild, or talking about their in-law, the daughter-in-law. She's black, but she's beautiful. What does that mean? What does that mean? She's black, but she's beautiful. You'll hear them say things like, let's say me, my family, most of my family is dark skinned. You'll hear them say things like, oh, you know, my family never said this. And again, I was just talking to my cousin about that the other day. I'm blessed that I didn't grow up with that around me or infiltrating my mentality. But I know a lot of people that have. So you would hear them say things like, oh, for the person, when they're going to pick their partner, to pick a lighter person, a whiter person to better their race, right? To take their race up. So they're saying so that your children will be lighter with a different texture hair that will better their race. And in turn, it's coming from a good place, right? Because what they're trying to say, and that's another topic, is that people who are lighter, a different complexion, with different texture hair, get treated better. And that's a fact. Studies show that, let's say if it's a dark-skinned woman that comes in for something, and there's a light-skinned woman that comes in for something, more than likely the light-skinned woman will get what it is that she wants. Or with men, the same thing. So their concept of saying that is, again, comes back around to fear. Because let's say if you're a dark-skinned person that has lived a hard life, has been treated unjustly, your goal is to better the life for your children. You don't want them to go through the same struggles you did. So you think you're doing them a service by telling them to better their race, to make life easier or better for them, to open up more doors for them, by them making their kids and their kids' be a lighter complexion with longer, softer hair. Okay, I'm going on a tangent. Then it goes by intelligence. Again, we see that to this day. If you're in a black family and you're the one that went to college, sometimes you are cast aside because everything you do, oh, she thinks that she's better than us, or oh, he thinks he's better than us. Or you see the people that go to school think that they're too good to come chew the chicken bone, and eat chicken feet with their family. What they used to do before, now they don't feel like doing it anymore. It makes a separation. The size. Okay, again, we always see people talk about they want a man that's 6 foot tall. That's who grabs the attention of the room. And then, of course, by the size of the plantation that they come from. So one of the things that he said to do is make sure that they're dependent on you. So he goes into different categories of how you can make sure that they are dependent on you. And when I tell you, if you've never read this letter, read it, but it's heartbreaking and it's gut-wrenching to read. The ways that he mentions to make sure that they're dependent on you is, I'm at 10 minutes. So I'm going to post this. I'm going to come back with part 2 on creating dependence. I'm going to be back. I promise you this all ties in to what I was talking about before, but bear with me.